Since its debut in the year 2011 on Flash, Kingdom Rush has grown to become one of, if not the most recognizable tower defense games ever created, capturing the attention and love of millions of gamers across the globe. I don't think it's any secret that part of the reason for this has to do with the game's diverse selection of towers, spells, heroes, and enemies. However, out of all these unique and dynamic factors that make this game so lovable, I believe the enemies inside of the Kingdom Rush universe deserve special attention and analysis. In today's episode, we will be looking at the first enemy we're introduced to inside of the original edition of Kingdom Rush, Goblins. Who are these creatures, and where did they come from? How do they fit inside the game, and what is their purpose? I will be attempting to answer these questions, and more, as best I can, while giving an analysis of the best strategy for defeating this particular enemy within the game. Let's get started. In order to truly dive in and figure out the meaning behind the goblins inside of the Kingdom Rush universe, we first need to understand what these creatures are and where they come from. Goblins are fictional creatures stem from folklore and story around the Middle Ages. Depending on the country, they're attributed with different abilities, temperaments, and appearances. Inside of the game Kingdom Rush, goblins are described as small, evil humanoids with no outstanding abilities. This is somewhat of an inaccurate description, however, as some goblins are actually quite inventive. An example of this is the hero Traman, a goblin inventor who fights for Veznan in Kingdom Rush Vengeance. Traman uses his ingenuity to design weapons of mass destruction, such as the Rocket Rider's Tower or the Goblin War Zeppelin. So how do the goblins fit inside of the game Kingdom Rush? What is their purpose? And why would they fight for the main antagonist Veznan, or for that matter, the Orcish chieftain Gulthak? There are a couple possibilities here that make sense. Historically, goblins have always been portrayed as greedy creatures with a peculiar attraction to rare and valuable resources, the main resource in question here being gold. Gold has always been coveted by the goblins, who want nothing more than to become rich and powerful. Ironically enough, because the goblins are not viewed by human society as worthy of being bartered with, due to their mischievous habits of stealing, the goblins can't really use their gold to buy anything from the humans. They can only spend it where non-humans accept them. I believe this theory to be the most accurate one, although there are others. Since the goblins also follow the leadership of the Orcish chieftain Gulthak, this poses the interesting question: why would the goblins follow Veznan's orders as well? Veznan is the main antagonist of the first Kingdom Rush game. He later returns in Kingdom Rush Vengeance, although his full plans and intentions are unknown. Regardless, in both editions, Veznan needs an army to assist him in his battles, and he manages to enlist the goblins' aid in both cases. Given that he's an extremely powerful sorcerer, it's quite possible that Veznan conjured up huge amounts of gold to buy the goblins outright from Gulthak himself. A less likely scenario could be that Veznan merely went to the Orcish chieftain himself and used his prowess and skill with magic to convince or even hypnotize the warlord under his power, commanding him to hand over some of his troops willingly. Overall, the goblins inside of the original edition of Kingdom Rush are underwhelmingly weak, even on the hardest difficulty mode possible, so Veznan didn't gain much from buying or stealing these troops. As far as the best strategy for taking out the goblins, there are a couple of options depending on the number you're facing. Small to medium-sized groups can be handled easily by archer towers, preferably mid-tier at levels 2 and 3 to be cost-efficient. In the case of large groups, a couple barracks and a level 2 artillery tower work fine, although in my personal opinion this is somewhat unreliable given the artillery tower's slow rate of fire and its tendency to sometimes miss its target. The ideal setup on the hardest mode possible would be 2 level 1 artillery towers in conjunction with a single barracks tower. 2 barracks would be somewhat unnecessary, but almost impossible for the goblins to break through at that point. I think it's fair to say that although the goblin swarms are quite low on the list of threatening enemies to deal with in the game Kingdom Rush, they were still put in place for a reason. Although that reason is unclear, we can conclude for sure that they are essential for Veznan's plans to succeed. Do you all agree with this? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. This is Pollux the Wise, and I'll see you all in the next video.